Jared from Southern Homesteads here. Hey, super excited. In today's video, we're going to go through constructing the walls of your cabin. Now, I want to take this opportunity to just address a couple of things as we go to build these walls. If you've noticed, when we did our floor system, we did our deck system, we broke those down into smaller pieces. And that was done intentionally, not because they had to be done from a structural perspective, although we've doubled up some of the lumber there, actually making it stronger. It was done for an ease of build. You know, if there's anything I've learned in the last couple of years working with people that are doing off-grid, they're doing construction, most of them don't have a ton of construction experience. You're learning from, drinking water from a fire hose. You're trying to learn farming and gardening and trying to figure out construction skills while you're trying to figure out how to pay for all of this because you've got a normal job and you've got a family and you've got kids' sports and you've got all these things going on. And so one of our goals when we decided that we were going to build this cabin kit was to make it so you didn't have to be a construction professional to be able to do it. And so for us, we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy breaking this down to smaller sections that required less skill, it required less knowledge, and in some respects, less thinking. If I can have you build 4 of the exact same small walls that are easy to deal with, they're easy to work with, 2 people, no problem, 1 person, no problem, to be able to stand them and deal with it, we're far better off than me giving you a wall that's 20 feet long and having you try to stand that up and deal with that. So if some of you have been in the construction trade or you've done a little bit of construction, you might see that breaking walls into sections the way we did it is typically not how it's done out on a job site. And the reason for that is sheer expense. Why would I have extra 2x4s put into a wall if I don't need them for a construction perspective? For us, with every building design, you have to decide what's important. Is it quality of build? Is it insulation? Is it function? Is it form? Do I want special roof pitches? Do I want, and so for us, what we have found is most people that are looking at off-grid, or they're looking at even an on-grid, into a smaller cabin or into a smaller house, they're looking for quality. They're looking for ease. How do I obtain this? The greatest, most efficient design in the world, the most awesome cabin that you can never afford does you absolutely no good. Or the most incredible design ever that you can afford, but you don't have the skill to put together, doesn't do you any good either. And I see a lot of kits and a lot of stuff out there, and we help a lot of people where they have bought stuff that, quite frankly, they don't have the skill to be able to put it together. And to obtain those skills is going to require a vast amount of time that they don't have. So as you see our wall sections and as we've broken it down, we have done this intentionally because we broke this down into what we believe were bite-sized pieces that anybody can build this. That was our goal when we set out, was that we could hand you video, we could hand you instruction manual, and anybody can build it. Some people will build it faster, some people will build it slower, but I genuinely believe we constructed something that anybody could build. All right, so let's get to it. Let's build some walls. So we start framing here. Let's go through the components that are in a wall so that everybody understands the language that's being used. First, this is called your top plate, okay? This is gonna be doubled up later on, but right now this is a single top plate. That's the board that's running horizontal all the way across the top. The horizontal board across the bottom is called your bottom plate. These boards that run from your top plate to your bottom plate on 16-inch centers, these are your studs. When you get to a window, or a door, you have a couple different components here. The board that runs from your bottom plate all the way up to your top plate in one continuous board is called a king stud. Okay? The board that's inside this is called your jack stud. Now, if you'll notice, this board comes from your bottom plate up to a header. So this 2x6 right here is called your header. So these jack studs are carrying the load from that header. So it's transferring the load down. The boards up above here on top of your header, running from your header up to your top plate, those are called cripples. Okay. Underneath your header, we have a 2x4 here that's just running on the inside. That's what they call a trim board. On the bottom of your window, this is your sill board or your window sill. And then you've got these 3 boards that run from your bottom plate to the bottom of your window sill. Those are called cripples also. So this doesn't change whether you're building a cabin, whether you're building a house. This is all standard framing terminology that's used. The only thing that changes if we move to a door, when we go to our door wall, we're still going to have a top plate, a bottom plate, king studs, jack studs, and a header. You just won't have your sill plate or your bottom cripples. These will be removed and that opening would become your doorway. We're officially starting our walls. So we're going to go ahead and do a layout. These are laid out on 16-inch center, just like we did in our deck and our floor joist system. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to pull from this side. I've got 2 80-inch boards. These are both my top plate and my bottom plate, and I've got them together. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark 16 inches. That's going to be where I mark my X. That's where my 2x4 goes. And then I'm going to put a line at 15 1/4. So that's what we call 3/4 back. I'm just going to go ahead and line these 2 up so I can transfer that. And then what I'll do, score this all the way down with the X. Our stud covers the X. So we're going to work our way all the way down this top plate and bottom plate, doing the exact same thing. So I'm going to go 32, 31 1/4. Go to 48, 47 1/4, and 64. And then your last one, you'll have a stud at each end. Just put an X to remind me. Now let me transfer these lines, transfer my X's. Okay, so I've got that marked. One of the things that's real important is we do this. Now that we've marked it, we don't want to flip these around so it's backwards. While this wall is symmetrical, it'll become really important on our end walls when they're not. So I'm going to go ahead and take this down here, move these out of our way. Now, on our schematic, this wall, it has a window. So I'm going to go ahead and set my first couple of full length studs, and then we're going to go back and set our window. So this is going to be the back side that's going to be in that corner over there. So I'm going to go ahead and put my first 3 studs in right here. Then I'm going to put 2 studs on this side, leaving the one out of the center, and then we'll come back and we'll add that in as we build the window. On your end boards, you just want to make sure that they're flush. Flush with the end of the top and the bottom plate. So next, we're going to go ahead and frame for that window. This is our bottom plate over here. This is our top plate. We're going to work off of the bottom. This stud right here that we've already put in place, we're going to use as our king stud. Now there's an easy cheat here for this window. This header is going to run from king stud to king stud. So if I take this, set it here, set it here, take my 2x4, I'm going to nail this in. Okay, so I have my 2 king studs. Next up are going to be my jack studs. These are going to go just inside of this. So I'm going to take my header board back out. Set one there. Set one there. We're going to go ahead and nail these off. Okay. Same thing on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and double check this. Should be 24 inches between the jack studs. 24 inches on the money. So we're good there. Now, next up is going to be my header. So I'm going to take this header, 2x6, and this is the OSB shim board. So the reason we put this piece of OSB in here is just to make this the same width as our wall. This wall is 3.5 inches thick with a 2x4 laid down. Each one of these 2x6s is only 1.5 inches, equaling 3 inches. So we put that spacer in there so that the header is the same width of the walls. It just makes it easier attaching siding. Doesn't offer any structural strength, but if you're going to drywall the inside, you can do siding on the outside. Makes life easier. Okay, so I'm going to take my header. I'm going to slide that down tight on top of my jack studs. I'm going to give it a couple of nails. I'll put a couple more in that once we get it stood up. Next, we're going to add 2 of the cripples to the bottom of the window, one up against each jack stud. We'll worry about the other cripple after the windowsill is in. Next, we're going to nail our windowsill plate into the cripples that we just installed. Now I'm going to install my trim stud to the bottom of my header. Now we're going to install the last couple of cripples into the middle of our header and our sill plate. So your top one's going to go from your header up to your top plate. Your bottom one is going to go from your windowsill plate to your bottom plate. Now you have to mark on the bottom of your windowsill plate your 16 inches on center out. So go ahead and just measure across. Make your measurement just like we did in laying out the top plate and the bottom plate. Put those in and nail them off. Now we want to square this section of wall up, so we're just going to measure from corner to corner on that wall. We want those measurements to be equal, and we're going to adjust that wall until they are. Once we have our wall square, we want to add a brace to the outside to hold it in place, so we're going to diagonally put that across. Now we want to make sure we only connect that brace with screws, because this is a temporary brace that we're going to have to remove later. Next, we're going to take our string line and we're going to measure 3.5 inches away from our beam across the back wall. We want to do that on both sides, and we're going to run a chalk line across. That'll give us a straight line across our back wall and help us line up our 3 wall sections as we go. Now that we have that complete, we're going to stand the wall up, we're going to slide it over to that corner, and then we're going to add kick braces in on the back side over there to stabilize it. You want to make sure that you line your wall up with the chalk line that you just put on. That chalk line mark will be to the inside of your wall. Now I want to line up the outside edge of my wall flush with the outside of my flooring. So this is the part of the build that gets a little weird. I asked my daughter to bring me a screw gun, and she brought me a screw gun in one hand and a handful of poop in the other hand, asking me to identify what the poop was. Farm kids, you never know what to expect. Now that we have properly identified deer poop for my daughter, we're going to go ahead and put a screw into the bottom plate into the subfloor. Now we're going to work our way down the wall. We want to make sure that the inside of that wall is on the chalk line. We're going to put temporary screws in it as we go. Next up, we're going to add a brace from our end wall across to our last stud on that wall. Now we want to make sure that we level up the wall when we do this. This is going to hold it secure and level while we attach our other walls. Now we've got the end wall kit out. We're going to go ahead and lay off this wall. We're going to do a little quicker than we did last time, just like we did before. So we're 16-inch centers. Our last bay is not going to be a full 16 inches. So I'm just going to come through, mark this quickly. Got that marked all the way down. I'm going to transfer these marks, just square up your boards. Now, this is something that's really important, and I just can't emphasize this enough. I see over and over and over again people making the same mistake. This top plate and bottom plate are matched up. They're both pulled on 16-inch centers from this side, and people will pick up their bottom plate, turn around, walk it down here. You have now just changed your layout, and when you go to stand this wall, you're going to realize that your studs are probably sitting at 15 degrees off angle. So really, really important. We've pulled from this side. And the side walls, they're all symmetrical. It wouldn't be crisis. This one, it would be a huge problem. So we're going to pull it back just like that. We're going to lay out our studs just like we did before. We're going to leave the stud out of the middle on our layout here. So coming from this side over here, our king stud that our window comes off of is our 6th one in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one, make sure I got that correct. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So that's going to be the king stud for our window opening. So we're going to go ahead and start nailing this off. So the fifth one over is going to be our king stud on one side of the window. This is going to be our king stud on the other side of the window. So just like we did before, we're going to take my header blocks. Going to put that secure down on the bottom. Going to do the same thing up top. Okay. Next, jack studs. Go ahead and secure my header. Set my header in place. I'm going to go ahead and grab my upper cripples. Set those in. Just go ahead and nail all this in. Okay. Now we're going to put our cripples underneath the window and our window sill plate. Now last up is going to be our two last cripples on 16-inch centers. So go. Measure over here. All right, so we're going to square this wall just like we did the last one. So 180 and 3/16. Again, we're just measuring from corner to corner. We're way out here. So 179 and 5/8. Let's check it again. Another 1/4 inch. Can you hold your corner? All right, let's try that. 179 and 3/4. $179 and 3/4. Okay, so that's now square. Take one of our boards and we're going to screw it across this one right here. Yep. Kind of come up a little on it. Go up a little more at an angle. Yep. Yep. Oh. No. Switch this. Was going to about put this in a place where it was going to interfere with our brace that's already up. So we're going to move it to this side. All right, so we're going to stand this one up. Nah. Okay, come on over. Over a little bit more. I think so. Nah, I think we look okay. Okay, now we're gonna check this with the level. We're gonna screw it off to our sidewall over here. Pretty darn close. That looks good. Nice and square. Again, these screws are just temporary. We'll put nails in it and structural screws later. For tonight. All right, so wall 2 is up and complete. The next wall we're going to do is a window wall right here on this side. All right, so the third wall we're going to put in is going to be an exact match to the wall we put up first. So we're going to go ahead and cut those bundles, lay it out, and slide it in over here on this side. We're bobbing and weaving some rainstorms here, but hopefully we're going to get enough clear weather to get the rest of these walls up. Next wall is going to be our center back wall, and this is probably the simplest wall that you're going to put up. Just 80 inches long. All the front and back wall sections are 80 inches long. 16-inch centers. So just like we've laid out the rest of them. Perfect. So we didn't put a cross support on this back wall. You can if you want, but it was attached directly to a wall that's already square, already level, already has a cross support on it. So we're just supporting off that one. Our last wall, we'll go ahead and put another cross support once we get that up. So the next wall up is going to be our final window wall on the back here. So this corner wall is a mirror image of the first corner wall we put up. So it's going to be laid out on 16-inch centers. Remember, we're going to leave the gap for the window and then put our other king stud in and our jack studs. This wall is up, it's in place. Now we're going to go ahead and put a brace to the outside. It's already braced this direction because we have our corner brace over there. So now we want to go ahead and level this up so that we're ready for our next end wall. So I'm just going to put a level on this. Let me see the screw gun. I'll put the screw gun up here first. Oh, I got screws. Okay, I got one screw in it, so I'm going to go ahead, get this level. It's level. He's going to go ahead and screw that into our rim. Perfect. Wall's level all the way across, and we'll actually, when we go to put our second top plate up there, we'll double check this and get it straight if there's any issues, but our corner is straight. So next up is going to be our end wall. It's an exact mirror of that end wall, so we're going to build the exact same way we did that one. So our next section is going to be our door section here in the middle. Now, this is one of the more complex walls that you're going to put up, and there's a little bit of measurement that has to come into this. So we're going to start just like we have the rest of them. We're going to lay out our 16-inch centers on this board. So all the way down, I'm going to go ahead and transfer these lines. Oh. Now I'm doing this on the top and bottom plate, and I'm not worried about the fact that some of this bottom plate isn't going to get a stud because it's going to be in an opening for a door. It's okay. We're going to X here, X here. Now here's where the math comes into this. We want to make sure that the door is centered on this wall, because if it's not centered, then you're going to be offset on your porch up there. So we're going to find our center line. It's here. These boards are 80 inches long. We're going to go 40 inches, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and mark. And I always put a CL across the top, so I know that's my center line. Now, I need to come 20 and a half inches over is going to be where my king stud is. So I'm going to go 20 and a half. Now, this is going to be to the inside of my king stud. So we're going to go ahead and mark to the outside there. Now, we're going to have another king stud that's going to be 20 and a half inches off of this side. But we're going to cheat that. And I'm going to go ahead, just like we've done with the windows. Once we set this one, I'm going to use the header for the door to space out my king stud so that I'm positive they're in the right spot, and go from there. So we're going to go ahead and start laying this wall out just like we've done our last ones. Now, a very important note here, remember that your stud goes over the X. So the X's are reversed. Our stud is to the outside of that line on our 20 and a half. Now, just like we did with the windows, we're going to take our header board. It's even got a little mud on it from the journey here. We're going to lay our header, one up top and one down below. And we're going to put this king stud in tight to that. Okay, got that in tight. Go ahead and get a couple nails in that for me. Oh, hang on. Let's see. Okay, so our king studs are in. So this is going to be just like what we did with the windows a few minutes ago. I'm going to go ahead and assemble my header. Now, this is going to be the top of my wall here. So I'm going to go ahead, set my header in. I'm going to take my 2 jack studs, which are right here behind me. Okay. Now we're going to take our cripples. Now we're adding our cripples into the side, just like we did with the window. We're going to So now we have a couple more cripples to add up here. We're going to lay these out on 16-inch centers, just like we did on our header. So, on our top plate, not our header. This is our header. So, we'll add two more cripples. Okay, our header's in. Our last board, which is going to be our trimmer. All right, we are officially ready to stand this wall up. So, just like we did every other section, we're going to stand this up. One thing to mention here is your bottom plate across your doorway. We do not want to cut this out yet. This holds your wall straight and keeps it from getting cattywampus on us while we're framing. So that won't get cut out till we go to install a door later on. So don't worry about the fact that there's still a plate there. Whatever you do, don't cut it out right now or you're going to create a nightmare for yourself later. So our last window wall's all together. We're going to go ahead and slide this up into place. Now this is going to go outside of our end wall there, and it's just going to line up with this one, tied up against that end wall. So one of the things about our kit in the assembly, the order of operation for assembly, is when we have to slide this last wall in, you get to stand on the deck to do it. So if you did this backwards, you're off the side, standing out in the dirt, reaching up, trying to align that. So when you look at the directions and you see that your last walls are your front corner, that's for a reason. So you don't have to be off, you don't have to go get a ladder. So we're gonna go ahead and stand this wall up. Kick it my way if you can. There we go. All right, so that's simple. Our wall is lined up. We'll throw a couple of screws in it to hold it temporarily. Now we're going to go ahead and secure our walls to our base beam. So we're going to take some of the structural screws, and we need to make sure that we're on the wall end here. We're in that last bay as close as we can. We want to make sure that this wall stays secure and doesn't move on us once the door's up. So I'm going to do one of these every other bay as I'm coming down. So I've got one there, skip one bay, bay here. Again, I want one down at the end here, so I'm going to go ahead and get close to the end. And we're just going to work our way all the way around the building, securing this wall in. Walls are all up, everything is standing. Now we just need to go back through and secure them. We've already secured our base plate with structural screws. Now we're going to come through with a nail gun and we're going to nail off all of our walls at the connecting joints. So that'll be each corner and then at the 80-inch mark going down these walls. Everywhere you connected these together, we're just going to drive a nail about every foot, kind of do one in the front, one in the back, one in the front, one in the back as you work your way down. Now, one of the things you want to make sure you're doing is truing up these walls as you go. So we're true down here at the bottom. The outside of this is flush with the outside of this wall. But when we get up top here, this wall, outside wall is bowed out just a little bit. So I'm going to pull that back in and I'm going to nail it off so that it's straight. Now we've taken a couple of screws. I've screwed a screw in between my end wall and my front wall on both sides, and I've run a string line across. When we affix the top plate here, we want to make sure that we've gotten this wall straight. And if you look down the wall right now, you can see my string line isn't anywhere near that. So this is going to have to be pulled in as we put our top plate on. So the way we're going to do this, this top plate needs to be 3.5 inches shorter than the outside. So it's going to line up to the inside of this wall. So we can do one of a couple of things. You can take your tape measure and you can measure 3.5 inches in from your end wall, mark your top plate here and know that that's where it goes. Or you can cut just a little block off like we did. And I'm just going to screw this block up flush with the end. Now I've got a stop down on this end, so when I begin to lay out the top plate, I know it's not going to interfere with my gable wall. So I'm going to grab a top plate and set it up here. So I've got my first top plate, butted it up over here on the end, and I've centered it on this end. I'm just going to put a screw in it for the moment in case I need to move anything later. Now, I'm going to come down to the other end of this board and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line this up, put a screw. So I've centered up this end, screw in it here. I'm going to pull my wall so that my top plate is straight down it. I'm going to put a couple of screws right down in the center. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the nail gun and I'm going to nail this in, alternating front to back every couple of feet. And I'm going to repeat this step all the way, on the front and the back wall only. The side walls we're not going to do yet. Those will get a gable wall to help tie that in. But don't worry about the fact that this is still moving a little bit. It'll get more secure as you nail it, and then we're going to start tying this off from side to side, and we're going to square up the top of this building. Next on the walls, we're going to go ahead and put a temporary brace in. As you can see, this sturdied up a lot, but we want to go ahead and throw a tie from this wall to that wall across the top of those top plates. So we're simply going to take some of the scrap wood that we have. We're going to measure. We're going gonna go 12 feet in length. So I've made this 12 feet long. I'm just gonna go ahead and put a couple of screws in it. Now we're gonna take this, we're gonna set this on top of the wall over here. And this is already to the 12-foot length that the top of that wall should be. So it should just be flush on the outside of both of them. We're gonna go ahead and put a couple screws in it. We'll just take this board, we're gonna put it across the center. Again, if you didn't make yours 12 foot, then you'd want to measure from outside to outside. We know ours is 12 foot, so we can just go flush. I'm going to put a screw in it. Toss my screw. Is yours flush to the outside? Yep. Okay, so that will help hold these walls in, and as we begin to put a little bit of pressure here, it'll keep them from wanting to bow out on us. So again, this is just temporary, put screws in it, so it's temporary. Our last step that we want to do is we're going to go ahead, we've squared the bottom of the walls, we put them up. We're going to go ahead and square the top of the walls to make sure that, that the top is not racked. We'll put some supports in there, and then go ahead and start working on our lofts. To square up, we're simply gonna, it's easier to do with two people. We're gonna measure from corner to corner on both ends and pull the walls however they need to be so that we can make them an equal distance from corner to corner. Okay, so after measuring from corner to corner, and forgive us guys, it gets a little more difficult to measure this stuff when there's two guys and you really need two sets of hands. So we're trying to film up in the air while having the entire crew working at the same time. So what we have done is we are out about a half an inch. You know, you might even be able to argue that it was probably close enough, but instead of leaving that, working with a square building will make your life so much easier through the next step. When we go to put a roof on, if things are out of square, then you've got to try to shimmy and deal with that from a roofing perspective. So I really like to get this as close to perfect as we can. So what we've done is we've taken a tie down from this corner to this corner was longer than the other two corners. So we know this has got to get pulled in. Those two corners have to get pushed out. We simply put a tie down onto both corner and we've pulled it in that half an inch. Now our measurement is perfect, and so we're gonna go ahead and put some braces on this so it doesn't move when we release the tension on that. So we're gonna grab those scrap boards, and all we're gonna simply do is run them from in this bay across into this bay, put a couple of screws in them, and we're gonna do that in all four corners. And that will stop this from moving on us as we begin to build lofts and a roof. Okay, now that all those braces are in, we'll go ahead and take the tie down. We're secure, we're square, and we'll move on to our loft kits.